What's up? The whole purpose of my channel, if you haven't figured it out, is to help you get free. It's to help you build personal power so that you can live a life that you want to live and where you're not being basically commanded and restricted. Now, unfortunately, we do live in a world that is more or less neo-feudal. There's a few oligarchs on the top who kind of control everything. Now, these aren't people that it's not the Elon Musks and the Donald Trumps of the world. These are people who are operating behind the scenes, but nonetheless they're constructing a sort of digital gulag around us. Now that's all good. It's within their prerogative. They're going to do what they're going to do. This isn't a channel about politics. This is a channel about helping you realize your own potential so that you can mitigate that. Now, freedom is not free. Nobody's just going to hand you freedom out of the goodness of their heart. That's not how it works. Freedom requires power. Now, even if you are a hermit, right? Let's say you're a hermit and you just like to be left alone, right? You want to live on a mountaintop somewhere. You still need power. Because if you can't control the surrounding area around you, people are going to move around. Like you're going to invade your space. So even then, you need power. You need the ability to make sure people don't get into your space. But how do you do that? What are the constituent parts of power so that you can have more choice, so that you're not being dictated to like a workhorse? That's what we're getting into right now. Now, power actually has four constituent parts. And here I'm talking about personal power. I'm not talking about, I'm not talking about grand power. You're not talking about like Otto von Bismarck and stuff like that. But nonetheless, this is what you can be doing right now to improve your life. The first one, the first element of power that you need to be working on is personal discipline. Now, personal discipline all comes down to controlling yourself. They have that saying that like the man who can't lead himself isn't fit to lead others. Very true. Again, self-control. Like, can you control your thoughts? Can you control your emotions? Can you control your behaviors, actions, and habits? This is what discipline amounts to. Self-control. Now, if you don't have discipline, it means you're just wasting effort. You're doing this all day or this all night or what have you. You're spending your Friday nights drinking, going into Saturday mornings. You've wasted your weekend. You didn't go to the gym. You didn't get anything accomplished. You've just essentially spoiled the most valuable resource you have, which is time. For what? An emotional kick? Okay. But somebody with discipline, they're not doing that. They are building their own capacity. They're building their own resources. They are actually networking with people who are worth networking with. And that's what you need to be doing, because without discipline, not only are you wasting effort and time, you are making yourself hard to respect, because it's very difficult to respect somebody who does not respect themselves. Like nobody respects a person who is tubby. Very rarely. Like, you have to compensate for that pretty hard. You basically have to become president. Like, quite honestly. Because you see somebody and they can't even control what they're putting into their mouths, but they think they are qualified to control you or give you life advice. And the natural response to that is to roll your eyes and maybe nod your head and say, okay, go away. And that's how fat people get treated. And that's how people who lack discipline get treated. Like, oh, I spent my weekend playing video games. That's not an impressive story, right? People hear that and they're like, oh, okay, well, this guy is not somebody I want to listen to, not somebody I want to know. So that's the first factor. It's just discipline. It's controlling yourself, directing your energy and efforts how you want to be directing them rather than going off autopilot. Number two is influence. This is the second factor. Now, the plain fact of the matter is you can only do so much stuff yourself, right? I didn't create this phone that I'm recording on. I didn't create the platform that I'm posting it on. I didn't even create the shirt, right? Somebody else did all of this for me, thankfully, right? And that's how most of life is. like you will not be able to do most things yourself. Instead, you need other people to do them for you. So whenever you can leverage the efforts of other people, you become more powerful. Now you need to ask yourself, how can you do that? How can you put your words into people's mouths? How can you get people to like and listen to you? How can you become more trustworthy? And how can you do this with people who are worth networking with, right? Because you probably don't want to be king of the losers, right? You don't want to be I'm not going to put anybody on blast here, but you don't want a fan base of disgruntled men who have nothing going on for them, right? Unless you're planning the no kings revolt, whatever, you know. But you kind of need other people on your team. You need to be able to leverage the skill, the time, the efforts, and the energy of other people. That's a lot of what power is right there. But whenever you don't have influence, what happens is you have a very, very limited impact. You could have discipline, you could be working very hard, but if that effort ends at you and it doesn't transfer and carry over to other people, then you haven't actually gotten much accomplished. You haven't really had that impact. So, whenever you don't have influence, you just have unused potential. And you don't want to be that guy who, at the end of his life, everybody says, gee, he had a lot of potential. That would be a terrible legacy to leave. It's just wasted potential. So that's number 2. The third factor is capacity. This is skills and resources. This is the ability to actually get things done. And whenever you don't have this, when you have no capacity, then you end up having influence that collapses, right? You might have started with discipline, you might have a little bit of influence, but when people realize that you're just kind of full of shit and you can't actually make anything happen, they quickly abandon you to greener pastures. And rightly, they should. Like, why would they stick around with somebody who really has no resources, no skills to offer? So use your discipline to build your capacity. It's very, really simple. Use your discipline to build skills, to build resources that you can later leverage through other people. So that's number 3, capacity. Number 4, and finally, is alignment. It's essentially focus. And this is where a lot of people mess up. It's where I mess up, quite honestly. I love to stretch myself thin on a million different things. But the reality is, like, you have kind of 3 types of people. You have dim light bulbs, barely there, dopamine addicts, just kind of derping through life. That's a lot of people, maybe 40, 50%. Then you have people who are like the sun, very bright, but not focused. Their light is scattered everywhere. And they end up, expelling energy without actually creating anything. And then the last type is laser-focused people. These are people whose whole goal, whole life vectors towards one direction. These are people who get a lot of stuff done. So you need this sort of alignment, so you're not scattering your energy, so you're not the sort of person who has a lot of spark, but no fire. So these are the 4 factors, and these are multiplicative, right? And what this means is, it's not 2 plus 1 plus 3 plus 4, it's 2 times 3 times 1 times 4. So if any of these factors that are at a 0, then your power is at a 0. And what this means, in the grand scheme of things, is that you need to really audit each of these areas. And you need to understand where you're lacking. Is it self-command? Is it your ability to move others? Is it your resources? Or is it your purpose? Figure out what that weakest link is, raise that, and even go down deeper. Audit each one of these areas. Drill down. Like, what's the one weakest part of your discipline? What's the weakest part of your influence? What's actually holding that back? What is the resource that you're lacking? Because that's what's going to really hold you back. And you can max out everything, but if you're lacking that one thing, that's going to create the ceiling on your power and influence. That's going to create this like the ceiling on your freedom. So really drill down into these things, figure out what is the missing link, and address it as soon as possible. Be ruthless. Audit every aspect of your life. Identify where you need to improve, then start to resolve it. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you don't know, I have this YouTube channel. I also have a Substack, No BS Philosophy. I write a lot about building personal power. I write a lot about using psychology and philosophy to leverage and gain influence, to gain freedom. Because I don't really care about power. I just don't want to be dictated to. I don't want you to have to be dictated to, so I don't want anybody to have to live like a serf. Some people are, right? We need the serfs. But I don't want to be the serf, and I don't want you to be the serf. So that's why you need to subscribe to this channel so you can receive even more information about this. And I will see you next time.